Hi, my name is Yahya and welcome back to yet another video, and today we are going to talk about the core of photography, composition. So let's jump right in. So before we get started, there are a couple things that are important for us to understand before we understand what composition is and what are the elements of composition and what are the principles of composition. So the first thing we need to understand is, as I said before, photography is an art and art is subjective. So what you need to understand in composition is, although these are rules and we should follow them as photographers, it is not necessarily written in stone that we cannot change them or we cannot alter them. So understanding these rules and elements of composition are going to help us understand the leniency that these composition elements have. The second thing we need to understand is there is no one right compositional element for all scenarios. For example, I cannot tell you that use this type of compositional element to use or to go through or to go about shooting any scenario. Each scenario is going to be different, and that difference of each scenario will require you to use a different method or a different element in composition. And the third thing we need to understand is patience. You see, what separates a great image from a snapshot, when you go to the beach, you take your phone up and you just take a photo. What differentiates a great photo from just a snapshot is how much time you spend analyzing the scene and how much time you use to understand what compositional element will be better to be used in these situations. So have a bit of patience in taking your photos, and this is going to make you a great photographer. And don't complicate it, don't overdo it. Like, don't spend 20, 30, 40 minutes just deciding on which composition element should you use. But it is important for you to take a moment, step back and just look at what compositional element, analyze the scene in order for you to take a better image. So without further ado, let's get right into it. In visual elements, there are two things you need to understand. Composition is divided into two things. The first thing is called elements or rules, compositional elements or rules. And all these compositional elements or rules, they are there to achieve compositional principles, okay? And these compositional principles help us achieve an aesthetic pleasing image, okay? So what do we mean when we say composition? What is composition? Composition means how elements in a photograph are arranged in relative to each other and in relative to the frame. You see, this frame of the camera, how we arrange the element. Right now I am centered, okay? So this is it's called center weight composition, you see. So how the elements are arranged to each other and how these elements are arranged in the frame is what we call composition. So there are 5 main principles that guide these compositional elements or rules. The first one is called unity. Unity basically means how we group and place elements in order for us to achieve a unity. Unity is like how you place different subjects in order for you to achieve a group of them. This is called unity. Another principle that we achieve by using these compositional elements is balance. Balance means the right hand side and the left hand side are normally balanced, or maybe the top side and the bottom side, they are balanced. So balanced is another principle. Or harmony. Harmony is when different parts of an image fit together. Okay, how different parts of an image fit together is what we call harmony. Rhythm is how we consciously repeat the consciously repetition of similar components. Let's take, for example, you're trying to capture a bowl of salad. The props that you're going to use, for example, you're gonna cut small pieces of tomatoes, and how you arrange these small pieces of tomatoes is gonna ensure the repetition, the rhythm, how many times you're going to place these tomatoes. Another thing is called variety. Variety is an opposite of harmony, but it doesn't mean chaos. It means the differences of objects in a photograph create some sort of interest. This can be done using something like color or something like texture and so forth. So let's jump right into the compositional elements. Again, we need to understand that these compositional elements or rules tend to achieve these 5 principles that I just told you. And in a photograph, you can achieve 1, 2, or more of these principles. The more you achieve these principles, these compositional principles, the more you're going to have a more aesthetic, pleasing image. The first compositional element we're going to look at is called leading lines or lines. Leading lines is basically you look for lines that are going to lead to your subject. And sometimes, for example, let's take a look at this image right here. You will see that in this image there is no physical leading lines that lead to the subject. The subject is right here. But we see that in this image, we created leading lines using light. We shaped the light in a way that it leads to the subject of the image. The second compositional element and rule is called shape and forms. A form is the 3D or 3-dimensional objects in your photo. For example, if you look at this image, our forms are these cucumbers, this leaf here, and these aloe vera stems. And the shapes are what these elements create. Okay, for example, this creates a triangle, this creates a semicircle, even the leaf creates some sort of shape. Okay, it's a form which creates shape, and all these shapes, how you arrange them, are going to lead your eye into the main subject. The third compositional element is contrast, and contrast can be in 3 main forms. You can have contrast in colors, you can have contrast in texture, and you can have contrast in pattern. Let's take an example, this image right here. See that in this image, one side we have a blue background, and this blue background, it encompasses contrast of these pink candy. And the pink background encompasses a contrast with the blue candy. So if you look at this, it creates contrast and interest, and this is another element of composition in the photography form. The fourth compositional element is symmetry. Symmetry is achieved when the right hand side of your frame and the left hand side, or the upper side and the lower side, are symmetrical. Symmetry helps create balance in terms of principle. Let's take an example here in Photoshop. See this image right here. Notice that there is a perfect symmetrical shape on the right hand side and the left hand side, and if you look closely, you see that the middle is symmetrical and it points towards a perfect line of symmetry. Okay, take a look. If we divide this frame into 4 quarters, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you divide the frame into four quarters like we have divided it here, you will see that this frame is symmetrical. So this is called symmetry, which is another element in composition. Another very important and very pleasing concept or principle or rule in terms of composition is called negative space. Negative space is created when your subject is either in the middle and have negative space on the left hand side and the right hand side, or you can place your subject on the far right or far left and then create a negative space. Negative space basically mean you don't have anything else on either side. If it's the left side, you don't have anything else. If it's the right side, you don't have anything else. So this is what we call negative space. Let's take a look at an example in Photoshop. See this image right here. Our subject right here, as you can see this subject right here, there is a lot of negative space on top of him, okay? Now, if you look at the ratio between the subject and the space that is empty, you will find that the subject just covers a small part or a small piece of it, and the negative space or the space that is empty is too much. Perhaps one of the most common compositional element is rule of thirds. Basically, you divide your frame into thirds in either way. So you're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So 9 boxes, and you place your subject in each of the places that the lines intersect. So 4 points. Let's take a look at this photo right here. See that if you were to divide this image into thirds, you're going to see that our subject is going to appear in one of these blue dots, and if you place your subject in any of these blue dots, it's going to create a more pleasing image. It makes it more interesting. This is because things that are near the edge of a frame tend to have interest. Let's get into another composition. The seventh compositional element is called minimal or simplicity. Okay, minimal or simplicity can be achieved in three ways. It can be achieved through negative fill or the space that is empty. It can be achieved through color when you don't have a lot of colors in your image. Like my frame right now, it has a lot of colors. It's very busy, so you cannot call this a minimal image. And also it can be achieved through the subject, how the subject is kept in relation to that frame. Before I told you on regarding rule of thirds, how you place your subject to the very end, or something like negative space where you use a lot of negative space in your photo. So all of these three, they combine to create something called minimal or simplistic composition. So let's take a look at this photo right here. Notice that in this photograph that the subject is placed very end of the frame, and the color is very muted tones, so it's black. We used black here and muted tones like gray, and there is a lot of negative fill. So all of these elements, they combine to create a minimal look. Another very interesting sort of compositional element and rule is subframing. So subframing is very easy to understand. Assume you are shooting your subject through something like a window or a door. So you are framing your subject inside a frame. To understand this better, let's just take a look at this example right here. You see how we have our camera frame. This frame is in red. And now look at the subframing, the second frame or the subframe, which is the blue frame, the door window. So this door window creates a frame inside the frame. So this is another very interesting compositional element. Our ninth compositional element is called the golden spiral. The golden spiral follows something called the Fibonacci series. So it's a number that appears in a lot of nature, in shells, in tree branches, in a lot of nature. It's a very aesthetic pleasing, and they call it the golden ratio because it symbolizes perfection. So this golden ratio or the golden spiral, the number in it is 1.618, which symbolizes how this golden ratio is created. To understand this better, let's look at this photograph right here. See how this photo automatically pulls you toward the subject, which is this green rock right here. Notice how this image just draws you into this rock right here. Now, if you apply this compositional element, the golden ratio, automatically all your photos are going to create this spiral shape that someone is going to be drawn from the edge of the image towards the subject. Now, you see how when you overlay it, it just creates this Fibonacci series, the Fibonacci spiral. Our 10th rule or element of composition is called the rule of odds. See, many researchers have determined that the human eye is drawn to things that are odd. So ones, threes, fives. So if we take a look at this image right here, we're going to see that there are 3 cookies, okay? The visibility of glass of milk is just 1. There is 1, so 3 and 1. And there is a 1 bottle on the background, okay? And also, if you notice clearly, there are 3 main lit subjects. So 3 cookies, 1 glass, and 1 bottle. And all of these 3 subjects, they are all in odds. So, as I said and as I've told you before, in order to understand anything in photography, you need to go out and shoot. Go out, take your phone, take your camera, whatever you are using, it doesn't matter. Take a moment and think about these compositional elements. Think about how these compositional element or how the compositional element you decide to choose is going to allow you to achieve these 5 principles that I told you: unity, balance, rhythm. See how you can achieve these. The more you can achieve these, the better. The better your image is gonna be, the better your image is gonna look. And composition takes time. In order for you to learn composition, is going to take time. It's not something that you can learn in a day. Right now, I just taught you, I just explained to you these compositional elements, but in order for you to really understand these, you need to go out and practice. The more you practice, the more your eye is going to be keen to seeing compositional elements. Also, one of the most important things that I also advise, I do this myself, and I advise you to do this if you are keen in learning more about photography, is research. Okay, learn from different photographers like André Cartes, the father of compositional photography, the father of visual arts. If you look at his work, the way he arranges his subjects, the way he uses a lot of leading lines and a lot of compositional element to achieve unity, harmony, is just mind-blowing. Another person that I would recommend you to check is Henri Cartier-Bresson, who is this amazing, awesome photographer. And if you learn from people like these, or Elia Locardi, you go and watch how he composes each of his shots, how much time he takes to take a photograph of something like a mountain or a waterfall, then you will understand more photography. Anyways, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Keep being amazing, keep shining, dare to dream, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.